Hello and welcome to The Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2019 series, Bury the Lede. Bury the Lede is a comic I picked up kind of on a whim, mainly because the name Claire Rowe was attached to it, and I loved her art as one of the many things I loved about the DC Rebirth series, Batgirl in the Birds of Prey. But come to find out, that's not even the biggest name on here, as the series was actually written and created by Gaby Dunn, a well-known internet personality and legit journalist. Which is fitting because this is a comic about a young intern at the fictional newspaper, the Boston Lead. More likely than not, simply a stand-in for the real-world Boston Globe, which Gaby Dunn has apparently actually worked for. The story involves this young intern as she investigates a murder case, and attempts to solve it send her spinning down a rabbit hole of conspiracy and corruption. A nice little introductory nosedive to investigative reporting. And I can't really say more without getting into the details of the series, so let's go ahead and do that and take this away. The comic opens with ace reporter Lexington Ford, which kinda just sounds like someone mashed together a bunch of car names, trying to get some copy for a local shooting. I thought this opening case would somehow prove important to the plot, but it doesn't really seem to. As far as I can tell, it seems to be here primarily to set the stage for the people in place that is the office of the Boston Lead, and give us an excuse to get Madison Jackson, our intern and main character, into a company car equipped with a police scanner. While clearly very busy scanning, she hears reports of a possible homicide and shows up to the scene. Once there, she recognizes one of the cops, a detective Dom O'Shane, as one who would help her out with info while she was on the student paper at her college. Here in front of his partner, he puts on a "reporters are the enemy" face, but then slips her his cell phone under that old routine, "You millennials know how to make the beep beep boop boop go, right?" Getting her some insider scoop in the process. Smooth. But the truly important stuff happens the next day as the primary suspect, a Miss Dahlia Kennedy, is refusing to talk to anyone. She's accused of having killed her husband and son, though only the husband's body was found, and everyone wants to know why she did it. Attempting to try a different tactic, and with actual reporter Ford having already struck out, Madison tries explaining to Dahlia how she didn't do it. So she responds with an intense stare, a wicked grin, and a confession of how she brutally murdered her son and husband, no matter what the statistics say about how women kill people. It's all a bit much for intern Jackson, but that doesn't stop her from finding herself front and center of a media circus about the confession. As the only one Dahlia seems to be willing to talk to, this gets her coming back again and again to speak to her more. But Dahlia doesn't want to keep speaking about the murders. Instead, she wants to talk about someone named Raquel Stife. Stife is superintendent of the Boston public school system, and according to Dahlia, about to be Secretary of Education. Jackson dismisses the idea, knowing Stife to be dodged by claims of incompetency. Yeah, imagine some totally incompetent, inappropriate choice becoming head of all public education for the entire country. That would never happen. Dahlia also gives Jackson a name, and as she looks into it, she finds a man living above his means as the father of a high school girl that committed suicide a few years back. Committed suicide by jumping off the highest floor of her high school. After hours. Inside the building. Yeah. Ramsey don't think that was suicide. The girl's sister gives Jackson the girl's last yearbook, and oh look, she drew devil horns on this teacher. So, Jackson confronts the teacher, who is now working at a special education school, only to find he has quite the temper, pushing our young wannabe reporter down on some stairs before driving off in a rush. But the teacher, Keefe, is just the tip of the iceberg. As Jackson digs deeper, she finds at least 150 other instances of teachers with questionable dispositions being shoved into special education programs under Stice's rule. All done, most likely, to prevent scandal from blowing up, and even going so far as to include her own son being molested by a teacher. She hushed the teacher with her usual tactic and sent her son into a rundown old rehab clinic to keep him from talking. As this has been going on, it's also been pushing into her personal life. All this conspiracy surrounding Stife is bad news for Jackson's brother/roommate because Stife's nomination is endorsed by the mayor, and her brother works for the mayor as press secretary. Bro is also getting married soon, and his bride-to-be is also living with them, which must be pretty awkward. As extra pressure, her brother is also demanding she show up to the wedding with a +1. That isn't Dahlia Kennedy, forcing Madison into some awkward asking out situations. Which brings us to her love life, which is a relatively important, or at least big, part of the story. There is clearly a lot of tension, quite probably of a sexual nature, between Jackson and Detective O'Shane, but he's hardly her only interest in the story. As her work on the Kennedy story grows, Madison finds herself working more and more with Ford, who apparently is into her. In fact, after only a couple nights out of drinking after work, Ford straight up asks Madison if she's into her too. And I thought this reaction was supposed to mean, whoa, no, I'm not into girls, but apparently not. If we'd known from the beginning how Madison felt about other girls, it might have changed a bit the perspective on the scenes with Dahlia, but instead I feel like the point where she has this weird romantic dream about the accused murderess kinda comes out of nowhere. O'Shane still features prominently in the story though, and is even the one Jackson ends up asking to the wedding. Well, after Ford turns her down for not wanting the relationship to be too public. But Jackson and O'Shane spend a lot of the comic fighting, largely due to Jackson's actions. She spends a lot of time trying to keep him at a distance, and doing awful things like stealing evidence from his desk while coming over pretending to bring a peace offering. So when she does ask him to the wedding, it's with a pretty self-aware sense of eating crow. Not that she's not still kind of awful to him, saying that he might be interested primarily because there's an open bar, and he's Irish. Luckily, O'Shane takes it all in stride pretty well. That about covers it for this comic. Yes, I know I haven't fully explained the mystery, but my goal here isn't to replace reading these comics, it's to give you an idea of whether you want to read them or not. And as the mystery is pretty important to the story, I don't want to spoil everything. If you want to find out what happens, you're just going to have to read the comic for yourself. For now though, let's get to the breakdown. As I said in the intro, I read this comic pretty much on a whim, and so it proved to be a pretty nice surprise. And not just because I continue to love Claire Rowe's art, though I do. Gaby Dunn's writing is very strong, and though it can feel almost generically noir at times, there are several things that really help it stand out as uniquely its own thing. For starters, there's the non-typical main characters. Having several lesbian characters and at least 2 bisexual characters as main characters in a genre extremely dominated by tough-talking, hard-as-nails straight men is definitely not the usual setup for such a story. I especially like the rather circular way the story is written, jumping from Dahlia interview to the news to her personal life and back to Dahlia interview, and kind of an endless crazy cycle that greatly adds to the sense of a life spinning out of control, something pretty much all of noir has tried to do but very few have succeeded at capturing. So all in all, I feel it only appropriate to give this series a recommendation level of high. I can't really find anything to complain about in this series. It's a quick, interesting, unique, and highly enthralling read. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you're ready for winter. Looking for some last minute Christmas gifts? Check out all my high and very high recommendations for the comic lover in your life. Then meet me back here next week for another single volume series. Hope to see you then, right here in the Comic Cave.